Hi everyone, today's June 21st. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there. I'm just going to cover chapter 7 fairly quickly. It's a little bit of, I think, an easier chapter to digest. It goes to the second element of what's necessary for a valid contract. Just as a quick review, the first element, which we reviewed in chapter 6, is offer and acceptance. The second element, according to the book, you don't have to go in order, but the second element that we're going to discuss is capacity and competency. They're related. And the third will be consideration, and the fourth will be legal purpose, and then the fifth will be form. Sometimes it has to be in written form to be enforceable, although that's the exception to the rule. So this chapter is a little easier to digest. I'm going to go a little out of order from the chapter and start off with competency related to contracting. Contracting is a voluntary assent to be into something. We're both voluntarily agreeing. No one can force us, or that's considered duress or undue influence, and the contract will be voidable even on those grounds because you don't have the voluntary assent. People who are incompetent just can't have the mental wherewithal to knowingly enter into a binding legal agreement. And we don't put that kind of burden on people who are incapable of doing it. You can think of people with cognitive, congenital, they're born with mental limitations. If it's severe enough, they may not be able to enter into a valid contract. And sometimes they even go through a court proceeding to become adjudicated incompetent. So a guardian could be put in their place, even as an adult, in order to enter into legal proceedings on their behalf. Those are rare. There are many people out there that are incompetent mentally, but they never go through a legal proceeding. They just have people that help caretake for them. There are other people that suffer from mental illness that ebbs and flows, meaning that there's times in their lives when they are lucid and well. During those times, they have every right and every ability to enter into a binding legal contract. But during times of incapacity, where their mental disorder is such that they can't knowingly enter into a valid contract, those contracts are voidable. Don't say void. In most jurisdictions, they're voidable. What does voidable mean? Say, for example, if I had a mental condition such that maybe if I wasn't on the right prescribed medication, or I was just simply going through a cyclical period where I wasn't doing well, I entered into the contract while lucid, totally valid against me. Even if I become mentally disabled later, they can still enforce that obligation on me because the time I entered it, I was competent. What about this, though? I'm dealing with another party. They don't know I'm suffering from some kind of underlying mental illness that's severe enough that I can't understand the nature of the contract I'm entering into. I do so. I have the ability, or someone on my behalf has the ability to choose. There's an election. I can either ratify the contract when I'm well, or someone on my behalf, a guardian, if I have one, can ratify the contract and say, hey, Jim did this contractual obligation during a period of time when he wasn't well, but it might be a contract that's good for me. It's reasonable. It's something that no one seems to be thinking I've gotten taken advantage of. But what if it's me, myself? I'm incompetent at the time I enter a contract. I enter in a period of lucidity or wellness. I now have the power within a reasonable period of time to disaffirm, to basically repudiate the contract, and saying, geez, when I did this, I didn't have the mental wherewithal. I was suffering from delusions or what have you. I can go to court. It's my burden, by the way, because we are all presumed to be competent at law. Remember, like you guys might watch police shows or law type shows. We're all presumed innocent. Someone's charged with a crime, you're presumed innocent. This is another presumption of law. You enter in a contract, we're all presumed to be competent. So if I allege I wasn't competent when I entered the contract and I want to repudiate it now, it would be up to me to prove that element. It's pretty difficult. I'd have to probably bring in doctors, maybe family members, to talk about my underlying condition, and they'd have to be able to say with some medical certainty that at the time I entered the contract, I was suffering from a severe limitation. These are pretty narrow. These aren't going to come up too much in business, but they're important to go over just to know that if you're going to be dealing with people that you're suspect about in terms of their mental wherewithal, you may decide not to contract with them and ask to deal with a family member or something like that because you're not comfortable with their ability to comprehend the nature of the obligation you're entering into. It doesn't come up all that much. The other one that students love to talk about in the traditional brick and mortar class is intoxication. What if one party was so drunk or consumed so many, I don't know the language for taking drugs, but took enough of either prescribed or non-prescribed drugs, and they became incompetent to comprehend the nature of the agreement they're going into. Again, it's their burden to prove that they were so impaired from the consumption of either drugs or alcohol that they didn't have the ability to voluntarily assent to it. It's pretty rare. Juries don't like it either because you're the one that voluntarily took the drugs or the alcohol, and they don't like you to be able to abscond from a contractual obligation because of your degree of intoxication or drug abuse. However, there are people that have drank that much. Most people, now carefully here, I used to put this on a test. I don't think I'm going to, but what if you entered into a contract and you said, geez, but for having those 2 or 3 drinks, I probably wouldn't have agreed to this contractual obligation. Should you be able to get out of it? The law says no. Just because you were sort of more loose about your inhibitions about entering into a contract isn't enough. You have to not be able to possess the requisite intellect to know what you were doing. That's pretty rare. It's almost like a blackout situation. And again, most jurors and judges, I don't think, really favor that sort of defense to the enforceability of a contract, saying, I was so wasted. I didn't understand this contract that I signed in 4 different places and an initial then was witnessed by other people, and I exchanged documents and things of that nature. It shows my intent to enter. I used to use an analogy in class. Many of us, maybe not everybody in class, I don't know, but many of us, I can say for myself, I have been so intoxicated that I've done things I wouldn't have done but for the level of alcohol that I drank. I did karaoke. I probably danced with people I wouldn't, maybe not the people, but I wouldn't dance at all if it wasn't for the consumption of alcohol. But did I remember doing it? Did I know I did that? Yes, I knew all those things. That's what we call regret and embarrassment the next day, right? Just like as if I entered into a contract that the next day I said, geez, I really wish I didn't, buy this thing at the, I don't know what it was, at the fair or whatever I was at the party or at the tag sale because I drank so much. I wouldn't have done it if I was sober. That's not the standard. It's that I wouldn't understand the nature of the obligation I was entering into. Very, very unlikely. But students in my brick and mortar class seem to want to debate about this for hours. And it is a debatable question. What is the degree of intoxication or consumption of drugs to make you impaired such you lack competence? It's an interesting question. I don't like what the book talks about convicts. I think there is a narrow preclusion to competency or capacity if you are currently serving a prison sentence or a jail sentence. You probably are barred in some states from entering into a valid contract because your liberty is curtailed, and some of your liberty is, it's not just physical liberty, it's rights related there too. But just because you've been convicted of a crime certainly doesn't bar you from entering into a valid, fully enforceable contract later on. We want people to enter society again as rehabilitated and hopefully part of a functioning economy. In order to do that, you have to enter an employment contract, you have to buy and sell things. So I don't like, the book made it sound very broad that if you're convicted of a crime, somehow you can't enter into a fully enforceable contract with another party. That's simply not true. So I don't really spend too much time on the convict question in the book. But this is the one that throws everyone off a little bit. It's minors. And most states, including Massachusetts, identifies a minor as anybody under the age of 18. Now, a lot of you are going to think right away, well, if you're under 18, you lack not competence, but you lack what we call capacity. Very related concept. Meaning that the contract's not void, but it's voidable. So I have a 15-year-old son, for example. If we go to Walmart today and he's got some spending money from his last birthday, and he says, hey, Dad, I'm going to head over to the side of the Walmart. I'm going to get some, I don't know, some stuff for his gaming thing, some new headphones or something. And he goes and buys them. That was a totally valid contract, but it's valid but voidable. Meaning that a 14-year-old son, did I say 15? I can't remember how old he is. I think he's 14. He could actually go back to Walmart, even if there's nothing defective about the equipment, and even if it's past their internal policy. I don't know if it's 30 days or 90 days that Walmart has this return policy. That's not a law. That's a contractual engagement that Walmart wants to provide its customers, this return policy. But what if 2 years went by? My son uses the living heck out of those earphones. He's doing his gaming, mars them up, not intentionally, but he uses them and abuses them like any other 14-year-old kid does. Could he return those? Could he say, I want to disaffirm this contract I entered into 2 long years ago? Yes, he can. And he can get all of his money back, even though the goods may be damaged, even though the goods may be actually destroyed, really unusable again. This shocks people. And my class defies me. No, you can't do that. Well, most of the time, most minors aren't going to know about the rule. And most parents aren't going to support their children returning products that they used for 2 years and got the full benefit out of. But it's a valid law. It's called the minor's rule, the infant rule. I hate the term infant because these are young adults. Well, so if I put on a test question, minors, people under the age of 18 enter a contract, those contracts are unenforceable. Don't say true to that. They are enforceable until and unless the minor elects to disaffirm the agreement. This is a very powerful rule, and how I can show you some evidence of it in terms of real life. I my 14-year-old doesn't watch shows like this anymore, but when all my kids were younger, it seemed like every morning, especially on the weekends, we watched the Nickelodeon, iCarly, and these other shows, SpongeBob, which is still on, I guess. And we watch them, and almost every ad is geared towards kids. Kids are a huge source of economic vitality for this country, and they're usually selling kid stuff, toys, and kids bop music I used to hate and used to buy. I don't know what they're up to now. I think they still sell these things. Xbox games, all kinds of things related to kids. And what did it say right near the end of the ad? You guys probably remember this. You probably heard it on other things you've seen in the media. You must be 18 years or older to call and order this product. That's not because they're trying to be responsible as business people. They're trying to make sure the contract can't be undone, and they'd have to return the money. And how long do they have to return the money? If the minor is 12, 6 full years, because while they're in the state of being a minor, they have the power to repudiate the contract. That's really powerful. Now, and this can come up on bigger things. I got my driver's license when I was 16 and a half. I don't know if that's still the policy in Massachusetts, but some kids out there, not when I was 16 and a half, but some kids out there have money. They're 16 and a half, 17 years old, 17 and a half. They've got money and credit, and they can go to a used car dealership and buy a car. Imagine if they wrapped the thing around a tree, damaged the heck out of it. Could they return the car in a tow truck? They're still under the age of 18 and say, hey, I don't really like the car. They don't even have to say this. I just want my money back. Do they have the right to do it? In almost every jurisdiction they do, including Massachusetts. Very, very significant rule. It's simple, but I think a lot of people out there either watching this video or reading the book aren't going to buy it entirely. So it's the law. Now, are there exceptions to this rule? Yeah, there's two major ones. One is minors acting in a business entity as a minor. So I always think of landscaping for some reason. There's some 16 or 17-year-old young people, they get together, they get a few lawnmowers together, they get a pickup truck, and they start getting contracts going with different homeowners to do their lawn. They are acting in a business entity. And as a result of that, we're going to elevate them to the age of 18 fictionally. We're going to treat them as adults because they're engaging in business. That's a narrow rule, but it does come up. There are some young people out there entering into business contracts as a regular course of conduct, and we're going to hold them to that standard. Give me 1 second. My dog is whining at the door and driving me crazy. Okay, Martha's back in the room. So to deal with minors safely, what do? You say, hey, I'd love to sell you this thing, young person, but I want your father, mother, guardian, older brother, older sister. And then there's a binding contract. Although the other contract was binding, but it was subject to repudiation by the minor. And when does the contract become ratified or such that they can't avoid it anymore? After the age of 18. So again, one of the exceptions, those minors who are in business practice. Rare, but it comes up. The other big exception are called necessities. So if a minor buys food, shelter, apartment, hotel, food, shelter, medical care, arguably certain contracts related to the tools of the trade, they buy tools to enter into an apprenticeship program or something like that, some courts have held that those are necessities. Let me see if the book listed a few others besides those. Food, clothing, shelter, medical services, dental work, education through high school or trade school, even through college in some districts, working tools of the trade, that one I did mention. Other things that are considered luxuries, probably not. Now, is there a debate about that? I can think about it. Some of you are up in northern Worcester County. You might argue that having a car could be a necessity for a young person to commute back and forth. Maybe even a cell phone might be a necessity. So therefore the contract with Verizon or Apple or the Android company might well be enforceable as a necessity. So kids don't get away with everything. They do get away with avoiding a contract if under the age of 18, if it's for other items than necessities. And we can debate about what things are some are necessities or not. And there's probably new trial cases going on all the time determining what's a necessity and what's not. But again, why is this very important? If you're going to be a retail merchant selling goods, and a lot of the things you're going to sell to are going to be young people, you need to know that those minors can come back and undo the contract. And even if the goods are destroyed or injured or lost, they can just say, "Here's my receipt. The goods are gone. I destroyed them. I accidentally. I get my money back." Yeah, they do. They get their money back. Another exception to it is fraud. What if a young person took this class? They're 17 years old and they say, "Hey, I just took business law one. I understand minors contracts are unenforceable. Let's go buy some, I don't know, motorcycle, and we'll go dirt bike riding, and we'll jump ramps, and we'll go crazy with the thing, and we'll get it all wrecked, and then we'll return and get our money back because we took business law one at the mount." That's fraud. You enter into the contract purposely trying to deceive the seller with using the law as basically an advantageous point. You can't do that. That's fraud. So we hold minors, when minors commit torts, young people, they commit a wrong, a civil wrong, including fraud, they are held liable. So we kind of elevate their age if they're 18 and make the contract fully voidable. And this just popped into my head. I don't know if I'm going to see him today, but I'll see him soon. My quasi-law partner. We'll talk about what a partnership is later portion of class. But he and I have been practicing law together since the 1990s. His son, we live right here in town, and his son actually had a lawn mowing business, raised some money, had close to $1,000, and he wanted to buy a BMX bicycle. I think he was 12 or 13 at the time, young kid. And he was telling his son, "No, you're not going to buy it at this bike shop in Sturbridge." It was a bike shop in Sturbridge at the time. It was very expensive, kind of charged a lot. He looked online and he found out he could buy that same bike in Worcester for about 25% less. He goes, "No, his name's Mikey." He said, "Mikey, we're going to get it in Worcester next week. Yeah, you just got to be patient. We'll get it next week." We're driving, we're going together from court. And who do we see riding on the side of the road? Because we live together or live near each other in the Sturbridge area. And we're driving down and he sees his son riding a bike. And it's the bike he told him not to buy. And so he comes home and he confronts his son. And he says, "Yeah, Dad, I bought a bike." He goes, "Well, we're returning it right now. Get the bike, throw it in the back of the car. We're going to go down to that bike shop and we're going to return it." And the bike shop owner had a big sign on his shop: "All sales final." Well, your policy cannot overcome the law. The law is that minors, we're trying to protect minors from being taken advantage of, even though the minors seem to be taking advantage of the rule, but we shouldn't feel so bad. The merchants are adults. They're hopefully educated through a class like this, and they can realize they should have dealt with the adult. So could he return the bike even though he had already ridden it in the woods and probably scratched it up a little bit? And yeah, got it back, got 100% of his money back, even though the person at the bike store refused to do that. My friend, he's also a lawyer, not that convinced the bike store of anything. He actually had to file in small claims, and he won the money and the cost of actually filing the small claims too, because this minor rule is pretty absolute. Be careful on it, and a bicycle is not a necessity, so he won the case. So minors, and again, the one that can't be avoided, necessities, went over that. Minors business contracts, those are fully enforceable, meaning they're doing something in regular course of business, trying to behave like an adult. We'll treat them like an adult. Same with torts. They commit a fraud to either lie to you about their age, or they're using this rule to take advantage of the seller or the provider of a service, and they're going to be held accountable. And we know what disaffirmance and avoidance mean. That means the minor, they're 16, they're 17. Sometime before they turn 18, they have to disaffirm the contract in order to get their money or value back, or a product. It could be a good. The kid could have sold some cards, some very good baseball cards to somebody else, and I hear about the value of the cards went up. They regret selling it. They can get those cards back right up until they're 18. What happens at 18? It's called a ratification. Basically, it was jello before it was loose and it was subject to undoing, but now it turns into concrete. It's no longer something that is subject to rescission because of the minors rule. And that's ratification sometimes. Same with mentally impaired persons. So say I'm mentally impaired today. I go out and buy something. Say I buy this iPhone. I bought my iPhone. I'm mentally incompetent at the moment. The next day, maybe because of adjustments of med, or I'm just having a better day, I'm lucid. But now I go out and get a cover for it that's unique to me, and I actually have it activated at Verizon. What did I just do? I did an act inconsistent with my right to avoid the contract. That's called affirmation or ratification. Now the contract is fully enforceable against me because during a period of lucidity, I acknowledged the desire to stay committed. It's almost as if I entered in the contract at that moment. Book is straightforward. I think it's really clear. I do like this section of the book, but it is one of the elements that you have to understand. So we went over offer and acceptance. We went over, which has a lot of complicated rules about the duration of the offer and things of that nature. But this one's a little bit easier, I think. It's you have to have the mental wherewithal, and you also have to be of a certain age. Careful not to make the contract void, but voidable. And chapter 8's a fun chapter. I'd love to get into it today, but it's Father's Day, so I got to go enjoy some festivities with the kids. I'll probably put up another video, if not tomorrow, certainly Tuesday. And those of you that are handing in homework assignments, I might get to it later tonight, but I'll definitely get it tomorrow, Monday morning. And I'll wrap that up because I have to sit and get my car repaired for about 6 hours, and I don't want to take out a loaner. Talk to you soon. Have a wonderful day.